Okay, we're up to today's daf is Masechta Bava Metzia daf Mem Aleph, and we're going to start from Mem Amid Beis, Mem Amid Beis by the Mishnah on the bottom, about like 7 lines from the bottom. So the Mishnah discusses like this: Hamafkid chovis eitza chaveri. Someone deposits a barrel by his friend. Okay, so the shomer, the watchman, is supposed to watch. The shomer is supposed to watch the barrel. Hi, Steve. We just began with the Mishnah on the bottom of Mem Amid Beis. So we'll repeat. Hamafkid chovis eitza chaveri. Someone deposited a jug, a barrel, let's say a barrel full of wine, to his friend to watch. And he didn't say a place for it. You know, he said you could keep it around your house, just watch it for me. So what did the guy do? So the guy who was shomer, who was watching the barrel. Okay, hi, Lewis. We just started. So somebody gave his friend to watch a barrel of wine, and he didn't say you could keep it. You could keep it anywhere around your house. The tiltala, and the guy picked it up and started moving it. And as he's moving it, vinishtabra, and the barrel broke. So the Mishnah says like this: if it slipped out of his hands, out of the shomer's hands, and it dropped and it broke. So it depends why he was moving the item. Litzar koi, if he was moving the item because it was necessary, because he wanted to use it. Let's say he wanted to use the barrel to take, let's say, a foot of his table was missing. So instead of, so he wanted to put the barrel underneath his table to hold up his table. So then he was using the barrel for his own. He was carrying the barrel to his kitchen, right, to hold up his kitchen table, and so he had no reason. He had no reason to carry this barrel. He's just supposed to watch it. So if it slipped out of his hand while he's moving it, he's chayiv to pay for the barrel. But if he moved it because he wanted to protect the barrel, let's say the barrel was by a place where it's windy, by an open window. So he wanted to move the barrel to another place where it's more protected. So then, and as he's moving it for the sake of the barrel, and it slipped out of his hand, Potter, you're not required to pay. Let's say, let's say he put it back. He lifted it up from one place. Let's say he lifted it up from his living room and brought it to his basement. And he put it down in his basement. And it nishbra, and then it broke. How it broke in his basement, let's we don't know, but it somehow, after he put it down, it broke. So it doesn't matter why he moved it. Whether he moved it because for the sake of the barrel, or maybe or for the sake he wanted to use it for himself. But he put it down in its place. Potter, he's not obligated to pay anymore. Why? Because once he put it back in its place, you see, if you're a shomer, and this is the most important point for the whole Mishnah, if you're a shomer, you're not supposed to use the item that was given to you to watch. You have to watch it. So if you lift it up, you're a ganef, right?
He is a thief.
Yeah, he's a thief. So then, but if he put it back in its place, he put it back in a nice protected place. So he moved it from his upstairs to his basement, even though his intention was to use it by himself, maybe use it a little bit. But once he put it back in a safe place, so then whatever happens to the item, Potter, you don't have to pay. Okay, that's that. And this is very similar. This is a very important point. When a person steals something from somebody, right? If you steal, let's say, his bicycle, and they use it all the time, so really, you're chayiv and einstein. No matter what happens to the bicycle, the ganef is chayiv to pay. But if the ganef puts it back into the garage, even without telling the guy you stole it from that you're returning it, so then once you returned it, so then you're potter from paying. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael. That's going to be the beginning of this Mishnah. Goes according to Rabbi Yishmael. The Mishnah continues, Yichad Allah Bailam. If the Bailam gave a place, he said, I'm giving you my barrel to watch, but I want you to keep it in a certain place in your house. And then Betiltul of Nishbara, says the Mishnah, the guy who was supposed to watch the barrel picked it up and carried it around, and it broke. Whether it broke while he was carrying it around, or when after he put it down. So then, it depends why he was moving it. If he picked it up because he wanted to use the barrel for his own purposes, Basically, he wanted to use the barrel to, let's say, again, bring it to his kitchen table, to hold up his kitchen table. So chayiv, yichayiv. But if you purse the barrel for its own purpose, to protect the barrel, so you're moving it to a safe place, potter, you're not going to be required to pay, even after you put it down. You see the difference? So the question is, you're potter to pay. Now, here, in the safe of the Mishnah, it's more stricter, because the Bailam set aside a certain place of your house where the item should be, right? He said, I want you to keep it in a certain place. And then he picked up the item and moved it around. And he moved the item because he wanted to use it. Even after he put it back, the Mishnah says you chayiv to pay. You chayiv to pay no matter what's going to happen to that barrel. So we're going to try to understand what's the difference between the beginning of the Mishnah, when there is no designated place to return it, and the end of the Mishnah where there is a designated place to return the item. So the Gemara starts off and says, Homani Rabbi Shmuel. Our Mishnah is the author of our Mishnah is Rabbi Shmuel. The Amar, who said, Loi be'inin das bailam. You never have to notify the owner if you're a ganef and you're returning something. You don't have to notify the owner. If you return it, that's fine. You're exempt from paying no matter what's going to happen. And that's the point of our Mishnah. The Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Hagoynef tolam in a edif. Guy steals a sheep from a flock of sheep. Or let's say Veselim in a kiss. He stole $1 from somebody's wallet. So, and you want to do tshuva, l'mokam shagon of Yaakov, to the place that you stole it from, you should return it, divrei Rabbi Shmuel. And you don't have to notify the owner that you returned it. Now, that's exactly our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that if you steal the barrel in your watch, you wanted to use it, and then you put it down, as soon as you put it down back into a safe place, so you didn't notify the owner that you stole it, you just used it and then put it down in another place. So then, potter, you're not obligated to pay. So our Mishnah is, according to the Reisha at least, is a Rabbi Shmuel. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Kiva disagrees with Rabbi Shmuel, and he's more stricter. Rabbi Kiva holds that if you steal something from somebody, you have to notify. You have to tell him that, hey, I stole something from you and I'm returning it now. And tzarich das bailam. And if you don't notify the guy, and so then no matter what happens to the thing, even if you returned it, you're always going to be still responsible for it. And if something happens, you're going to have to pay. So the Gemara says like this: Rabbi Shmuel, if our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Shmuel, so the Gemara says, my area lo yechadu. So what's the difference? Why does the Mishnah say that only if you didn't designate a place, then you're not obligated to pay? Afil yichadu nami. Even if you designated a place and you returned it to that place, right? So then you should not be liable to pay. You don't have to notify the owner or that the person that gave you the thing to watch that you stole something and you want to return it. As long as you put it back in its place, you should not be liable to pay. So why does the Sefer say that you're going to be liable? And says the Gemara, it's not necessary. It doesn't matter if you designated a place and you return it to that place, that you returned it to that place, certainly you're not liable anymore. But even if you did not designate a place and you returned it to any place, that's not its original place, you don't have to notify the owner. So if you're a shomer and you used it and then you returned it to another place in your house, that's fine. You're not going to be liable anymore for anything that happens to that item. So the Gemara says, but that's not true. But look at the Mishnah. Ema Seif, and this is the point. Yachadu lo habaylam mokoin. If the bailam gave a designated space in your house to watch his barrel of wine, and the tiltala, you carried it, vinishbra, and it broke, whether it slipped out of your hand while you were carrying it, and here's the point, even if you put it down, but the reason why you carried it is litzarkoi. You were trying to use it. You were trying to use the item for your own purposes. Chayev, even after you put it down, you're chayev. The tzarkal potter. But if you picked it up, not to steal it, but for the sake of the barrel, you're potter. Now, what's the reason why you'd be chayev? Because it must be that when you put it down, you didn't notify the bailam, you didn't call up the mafkid, the guy that deposited the item by your house, and say, hey, by the way, I stole your item, and now I'm returning it. Since you didn't tell him that, so even after you put it down, you're chayev. So it comes out, Asya l'Rabbi Akiva, the Amma be'inin das bailam, that you need that you need das bailam. So you need to notify the owner that you're returning something. So the Gemara says, what's
But
then if
he's
the
stealing
sefer is
something. He's
you
chayiv.
have to,
He's
you have,
chayiv of stealing.
right, but when you're returning it, Rabbi Akiva
You
holds you have to
stole it. I
the
stole
bein.
it.
Yes, even if you steal something and you want to do tshuva, you have to the be'inin das bailim. Rabbi Akiva holds you have to notify the owner. I'm returning your item. You can't just stick it back to him and say, "Oh, and not tell him that you're returning it." You have to tell him. So the Gemara says, "I Rabbi Akiva, my ir yachadu." What if the safe is Rabbi Akiva? Then why does the Mishnah say that only if he designated a place? I feel lo yachdu nama. Even if you didn't designate a place, and you're just putting it down, you're not telling the owner you're returning it. You're chayiv. The Gemara says, "Loy miboy kama." The safe is not doesn't need to tell you that. Loy miboy liachta lo makom. Doesn't matter if you didn't designate a place. Certainly, of course, you're not returning it to the right place, and so therefore you're chayiv. Alafil yachtu nami. Even if you returned it to its original place, the makaimahu, it's its original place. Rabbi Kiva holds, but in das bailam, you need to notify the owner that you're returning it. So basically, what this Gemara on this exercise did was establish that this author of this Mishnah is actually two people. The beginning of the Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Yishmael, which says that when you steal something, you don't have to notify the owner that you're returning it. And that's the ratio of the Mishnah that says that after you put it down, you're not liable anymore after you steal it. After the shomer steals it and puts it back, he's not liable anymore. The Sefer says the shomer is liable because he never called back the original owner of the mafkin and tell him I stole your item. So Reisha Rabbi Yishmael, the Sefer Rabbi Kiva, can you have a Mishnah that says that the beginning of the Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Yishmael, and the Sefer of the Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Kiva? That's very unlikely. Answers the Gemara, and that's possible. Very, very possible. Sefer Rabbi Yishmael, the Omar Rabbi Yochanan says, "Man the metargim li, if you could teach me this Mishnah and try to tell me that the author is one Tana, which means Rabbi Yochanan says, I think it's impossible. It must be there's two Tanoim in this Mishnah. But if you can figure out a way to enter this Mishnah, basically, I will carry your clothing to the bathhouse. In other words, I will treat you as my Rebbe, and I'll be your Talmud. Because Rabbi Yochanan felt that there's no other way to say our Mishnah is more than one author. So that's what the Gemara says. So now the Gemara is going to try to say that the whole Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yishmael, actually. So first of all, first he said that you have to understand that our Mishnah is discussing that he actually picked it up to steal it. Okay, we're going to explain what he means over here. Rabbi Yaakov is trying to say our Mishnah goes according to one opinion, Rabbi Yishmael. But you have to understand, when he picked it up, he didn't mean to use it for his kitchen table. Like I'm saying, he just wanted to use it for a little bit and then return it. No, his original intention was to steal it, and that's something different. Here comes Rav Nosson bar Abba Kabei Rav. Rav Nosson said, you have to understand our Mishnah. Shenotla amanas l'shloech b'yad. He wanted to use it a little bit. In other words, he wanted to take a little bit of the wine. That's called l'shloech b'yad. That means you have to use it a little bit. First, the Gemara wants to say, what's the machlekes between Rabbi Yaakov and Rav Nosson? B'shlichas yad, shlichas soren. When the Torah says, don't touch it, does the Torah mean that you have to use it a little bit? You have to take from it. The one that said he picked it up to steal it, Kesava, he holds shlichas yad, shlichas chesaron. That in order to the Torah's shlichas yad, when the Torah says don't touch it, when somebody gives you something to watch, don't stick your hand to it, means the Torah is trying to tell you don't use it even a little bit. But the one that said that you can even say that the our mission is discussing where he actually used it a little, where he actually touched it, doesn't mean he used it. He just had thinking about using it, but never really used it. He was thinking about stealing a little bit, but never really did. He holds that when the Torah says, don't shaleach yad, don't stretch your hand on something that you're supposed to watch, the Torah means don't think about even stealing it. But if you're chayiv, if you're just lifted up with the intention of taking a little bit, even if you didn't end up taking any of it. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to say like this: Maskif lo Rav Sheshes midi niktalikatani. Does our Mishnah say he actually took it, that he wanted to steal it? That's why I kept saying that that in our Mishnah, his intention was to take it and use it for his kitchen table. Tiltilakatani, he just wanted to carry it a little bit and use it for his own purposes, but he never intended to steal the barrel of wine. Rav Sheshes said, and here we're discussing that he actually took it because, let's say he wanted to, another example, he wanted to stand on the barrel of wine in order for let's say, to carry pigeons. So let's say the pigeons were on his garage somewhere, and he wanted to carry it. So therefore, he needed to step on something. Because Savar, so he really wanted to borrow it without asking the owner permission. Because Savar, our Mishnah is whole, that if you try to borrow something without letting the owner know, you're a crook. Now, so how do we say that our Mishnah goes according to one opinion? You're actually a crook over here. You're not a shomer anymore because you're borrowing it without permission. And the Kuli Rabbi Shmoli, and the whole Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Shmuel. So therefore, Shoyel Shloim Das, and you're a Goslin. But if you put it down, and you put it down, that's returning it in its place. So now you're not a Goslin anymore, and you don't need to notify the owner that you're returning it. That's fine in the Reisha of the Mishnah. The Seifa at the end of the Mishnah, you put it down, but you didn't. But the Seifa of the Mishnah is talking about the original owner said, I want this spot to be the place where I'm keeping my barrel of wine in your house. So he designated a place in the shomer's house, which that's the only place where he wants his barrel of wine to be. Oh, if that's the case, the Sefer, the reason why after you put it back, you're not liable anymore, you're still liable. You put it in the wrong place. You didn't put it back in its original place, so you never really returned it. So if you never really returned it, so even though you're Goslin, and Goslin doesn't need Das Bailim, you don't need it to notify you returning, but you need to return it in the right original place. And since you didn't return it in the right original place, that's why you're held liable. Rabbi Yochanan says, the word hinika means you're actually putting it in its original place. So now the Gemara says, okay, now the Gemara says Itmar. Let's read the Gemara saying Itmar. Itmar. Rav and Levi had an argument. Okay? Rav and Levi had an argument. Rav one said that shlichas yad is a new Gemara. When the Torah said, "Don't shleach yad," don't use the item. The Torah is saying, the Torah is telling you, don't use it even, and you have to minimize it. You have to take something from the item. So let's say you're watching a barrel of wine. In order for the Torah telling you that you're going to be liable for anything that happens, because usually a shomer is potter. If you're shleach yad, you stretch your hand. What the Torah meant to say is that you actually used the item. You took a little bit of the wine for yourself. So then you're liable for anything that happens for the rest of the wine. The one said more stricter. Shlichus yad ain't tzricha chzaret. When the Torah says if you shaleach yad, you're chayiv in everything that happens, that means that even if you didn't cause a chisara, you didn't use it. So that's a machlekes between Rav and Levi. So did you have to use it or not? You're just picking it up enough. According to one opinion, just by if you're watching something and you pick it up with the intention of taking some of it for yourself, but you didn't even end up taking it, you're going to be held liable. So the Gemara says, I'll prove to you that Rav was the one that held shlichus yad does not need to, you don't need to actually take it. Even just lifting it up, you're going to be held liable. So the Tanya we learned in the Brisa. Listen to the story. Roya Shahaya Roya Edrei. Let's say you have a shepherd. He's watching somebody else's flock. And he's a klutz, and he just left the sheep in its place of all year, and he came to the city. Maybe it's lunchtime. He went to the city and left them out there in the open. And a lion came or a wolf came and destroyed one animal. Potter, the shepherd is not liable to pay because he's just a shomer, and a shayme is potter from oinus. It's not his fault a lion came. What could he have done if he was there? So therefore, he's potter from paying. But let's say he used the one of the sheeps. He put his that sheep that got mauled. He put his stick and his pouch on that sheep. So he actually was using the sheep. Now he didn't cause a loss to that sheep. Just putting your stick on a sheep doesn't really cause a loss. Chayiv, then he'll be liable to pay if the lion destroyed the animal. We asked the question, just because you put your stick and your there's that called shlichas yad. You put your pouch on it. That's why you chayiv. Hashaklina, he took it off. The if his stick is still on top of it, so he's still using the animal. So the Gemara says just because he used the animal and it's still on top of it, it's not. He didn't lift up the animal. He didn't lift the animal. Shlichas yad means, let's say, a barrel of wine. You could lift it up and you show it's yours. But this shepherd, he was just watching somebody else's animal. How did he show that this animal that he's using without permission, he actually made a kinyan on it? He actually acquired it. Rav explained, he whacked it with the stick, and the animal started to run. So just hitting the animal with a stick and making it run towards you, that's called mishicha. And therefore, the shepherd acquired the animal, and now that's called shaleach bo yad. She used it, and therefore, if anything will happen to this animal, it's even an oinus, the shepherd is going to be held liable. Says the Gemara, like Chisra, but you didn't cause any loss to the animal. So how does Rav square off that point? Shlichas yad, like shliach yad, means if you're causing a loss to something, you're actually using it a little bit. Like the wine, you're using a little bit of the wine. That's shlichas yad. But just because you're causing an animal to move doesn't mean you caused a loss to the animal. From here you can prove Kasava. Rav was the one holds shlichas yad ain't tzricha kasarin. To be held liable for shlichas yad, you don't have to cause a loss. So therefore, Rav was the one held that way. Must be Rabbi Yochanan holds shlichas yad tzricha kasarin. So the Gemara says no, not true. Just the opposite. Ema shekisha b'makal. You actually caused the animal to be worth to lose something. You hit it so hard. Now the animal is a weaker animal. Dekinami, because if you precisely examine the words of Rav, he said he whacked it very hard with the stick. Shmamino, that Rav holds that you have to actually, in order to be held liable of shlichas yad, you must cause a loss to the animal. You must use it. You must cause it to be to weaken a little bit. So again, mid the Rav, the Gemara concludes, mid the Rav's shava shlichas yad tzricha kasarin. You have to cause, in order to be held liable, shlichas yad, Rav holds shlichas yad needs to have a loss. Levi shava shlichas yad ain't tzricha kasarin. Levi holds shlichas yad does not need to cause a loss. So now, my time of the Levi. What would be the reason of Levi? Why is Levi so strict? Again, to be strict, you're watching a barrel of wine. Okay, let's use that example. Levi will hold that if you pick up that barrel of wine with the intention of, I'm going to take a little bit of that barrel of wine, Levi holds, even if you didn't end up taking that barrel of wine and you put it down, whatever is going to happen to that barrel of wine, you're going to be held liable. So why would Levi hold such a thing like that? You didn't steal anything. Rabbi Yochanan said, the Torah says it twice. Don't be shaleach yad with your paid watchman or an unpaid watchman. Okay, we'll stop in another 2 minutes. The Torah, go to Amud Beis. The Torah doesn't have to tell you twice, and what the Torah doesn't have to tell you the same idea twice. Why does the Torah tell you that idea twice? That don't use it. Don't shaleach yad if something is held in your watch, whether you're a paid watchman or unpaid watchman. Rabbi Yochanan said, the Torah does have to say it twice. So Rabbi Yosef ben Aroi said it. The Torah, it's unnecessary to say it twice. Rabbi Yochanan says, I think the Torah does have to say it twice. Let's see what my Mishuna. Why is it the Torah not have to repeat it twice? So the Gemara says, the Torah does not have to tell you, don't shalech yad if you're a paid watchman. And I could always learn that, just like I'll learn it out from a Shay Mechinim. If you're a free watchman, you're not supposed to shaleach yad. Certainly, if you're a paid watchman, you don't have to pay. You're not shleach yad. Ma shemechinam. Just like a shemechinam is the unpaid watchman. Shepata begneva veda. He's not held liable if anything happens to that barrel of wine. Sholach bayad. But if he tried to steal it, chayiv, then he's liable to pay. Shemesacha, who's much more of a watchman, shechayiv begneva veda. He's held liable if it's stolen. Like kolshkein, certainly, if he's shalech bayad, he's chayiv to pay. So Lamai Hilkasa, for what reason? Kasvina Rachmana. Why did the Torah have to tell you the same idea twice? Don't shalech yad. Don't touch something that you held watch that's in your watch. To teach you shlichas yad ain't it tzricha kasaret. For to be shalech yad, you don't have to cause a loss. Even if you picked up the barrel and didn't take anything out of the barrel and you put it back, you held liable. That's what Rabbi Yosef ben Roy said. Comes along, and with this will end. What comes along, Rabbi Yochanan, and he says not true. Rabbi Yochanan says it's not. The Torah does have to tell it to you twice. Kirab Loza. The Amma, Both Shemechinim and Shemesachar are pretty much the same idea. There's nothing. Shemesachar is not more stricter than a Shemechinim. So if Shlech Yad, they're both pretty much the same. So therefore, the Torah has to tell it to you twice. Ma Davida Achas. Why are they same? I could say you always want to say that a Shem Esachar is much more of a watchman than a Shem Echinam because he's chayiv in Geneva and Aveda. But that's not true. A Shem Echinam has the possibility to be able to pay kefil double, because if the Shem Echinam says it was stolen, and then he lied, and he swore, and then he lied that it was stolen, and he's caught in the act, he would have to pay kefil. So there's a possibility that Hashem Echinam will pay double, and Hashem Esachar, since he's liable in Geneva Veda, will never have that ability to pay kefil because he's always going to be held liable for Geneva. So Hashem Echinam could be more stricter than Hashem Esachar, and Hashem Esachar could be more stricter than Hashem Echinam. Therefore, the Torah had to tell you shlichas yad by each of them. So therefore, it's only according to Rabbi Yochanan shlichas yad that if you cause a loss, that's when you're chayiv with shlichas yad, but not if there's no loss. And this will end. Shemechinam could lead to kefil, so it's stricter. But if you don't hold like Rabbi Yochanan, what do you hold? That the fact that a shomer tzachar always pays the principal back any time it's stolen, that's more common than where a shomer echinam is going to pay kefil. So therefore, the shomer tzachar is always more stricter than a shomer echinam. So according to that first Amayir, Rabbi Yossi, he says that's why shlichas yad by both is redundant. So that's why the Torah told you by shlichus yad by both to teach you that even if you didn't have a chisaron, you're going to be held liable. Okay, hard Gemara, but this is yeah. Okay.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, I get the knock.
I guess,
Good night.